Welcome to this special edition of DPW Podcast, live from the floor of DPW New York, where procurement, technology, and innovation converge. I'm your host, Rosalia Snyder, and today we're exploring the biggest ideas shaping the future of business and transforming procurement as we know it. Let's dive right in. Joining me today are Bawana, former Senior Vice President of Global Supply Chain Digital Transformation at Colgate-Palmolive, and Moore, the co-founder and CTO of Opstream. And today we are talking about data-driven procurement, unlocking AI's true potential. All right, let's get started. So just to set the stage of some context, let's talk about the current state of data in AI. Let's start with you, Moore. What are the biggest challenges that you see around data as it relates to AI?
I think that the biggest challenge that I see is that people expect data to get to a point where it would be clean and perfect. And I actually think that we should assume data is constantly going to be flawed and missing, and build processes, products, agents, whatever it is that we need, assuming the data will be lacking, finding ways to bridge it, but also not assuming that decisions require 100% of the data. I think what makes us special as humans is understanding uncertainty, and we need to get AI to understand the uncertainty in our data and still be able to drive value, because the chase for data to be perfectly clean and perfectly complete will just never get there.
Never get there. We're always going to have to continue to iterate.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts, Bhavna?
Yeah, I think in addition to the practical challenges with data, I think one of the big roadblocks we have is asking the right question that the data can uncover for us. And that is a data problem in itself. Understanding what we have and what we don't have, so that we're asking the right question from the data itself, right? And I don't think a lot of procurement teams have actually delved deep enough in that. We're still stuck on the basic problem of getting the data right, and not gone to that next step of, okay, even if I did have it right, what's the question I was going to ask of it, and do I even have that, right? So
right.
I agree so much, because without knowing what questions you're going to ask, what answers you're going to get, how are you ever going to talk about ROI?
Data drives a lot of our decisions, definitely. Now, I hear a lot from a technology standpoint, especially like our tools. Like our tools are the reasons why we don't have the data. So how have legacy systems or fragmented, technology and ecosystems really held back progress?
I guess I can start. So I think in a few ways, and I'll take kind of two extreme examples here. I think that, if we did have an audience here and I would ask how many of you customize your procurement systems, all hands in the room would go up. They're so highly customized, right? And every organization basically is a snowflake in the context of their procurement data. It's all so customized, and that's just proof to how unique the data profile and the data that matters is for different organizations. And so because the data set is so unique and spread across different systems, that make accessing the data very difficult, right? That creates this barrier. So it's the level of customization. They don't make the data accessible. And then there's no clear patterns in the data because it's so highly customized. So it's much harder to learn from each other and have the tools actually work together. So we have either tools that are so highly customized that it's very hard to interact with, and any change that you want to do to your data, you need probably millions of dollars and 13 different consultants to get that done, or systems that are built so narrowly under their data model that you basically can only do the very narrow things that they allow you to do. The flexibility and self-service together is just absent in the industry. And that's where we need to get to, where we don't lose to gain customization. We don't lose access and value in our data, because it should be the exact other way around.
Absolutely. How about you, Bhavna?
I actually don't think of legacy systems as being roadblocks to enabling AI. I actually think fundamentally the legacy systems in procurement were built for operational transactional purposes. That's not where AI lives. Maybe it does right now because we're looking at efficiencies in the process and applying AI for it. But if you really think of what is the value of AI, the value of AI is to increase the overall value for the company. That requires extremely different, it requires a completely different data layer, right? So your AI data layer is different from your operational data layer. And legacy systems live in the operational transactional world and they fit for that purpose. I think the fundamental problem is we're trying to take that data and fix an AI bigger value equation with that data. It's fundamentally flawed. The design is flawed. I think what procurement teams do not have is, and you were talking about data-driven decisions. I almost think we need to kind of flip that question around. It's not about data-driven decisions, but it is about how much of those decisions do we have in our data. We don't capture that today. We don't capture impact in procurement data. We capture transactions. We capture operational, from PO to invoiced, contract, etc. But that's not capturing the savings. It's not capturing the value that you bring to the business. So fundamentally, our databases do not have the data that I can apply AI quickly and increase my value price. So I actually don't believe that legacy systems are the reason that AI is not effective. I think we're just not built in the procurement function. We haven't built an AI data layer as yet.
So it's more of a fundamental gap in the model than any specific technology to blame is what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
it's like we're using, a hammer for something that a screwdriver needs to solve for, right? And it just doesn't work.
Okay, so
This is my favorite analogy because I do think that AI, all it is a new tool in our toolbox.
Yes.
And we need to learn how to use it. And it's not the right tool for every situation. But it does have the ability to give us so much more. And if we do relate the data in our legacy systems or any other system together with that additional layer that I 100% agree is absolutely missing, the AI data layer, right? Then we gain more. And I'll give you an example from one of our customers recently. They were able to enhance the transactions that they store with additional data around savings. So they were able to take that basic data model, but enhance it with specific ways to capture savings, just because that's the example you gave. But it's so important because that's how we track our own value in procurement, right? And they were able to marry that together. So I think it's about expanding.
Great. How can organizations really start to understand and unify their data so that it can be AI ready more?
This is my favorite topic. So I think first of all is you have to understand and start with the decisions that you want to make and then backpedal that. And don't try to solve everything at once. Perfect is not our goal. Added value, that's our goal. And that could be, if we go back to the savings example, right? That's one layer and we can go and grow from there, right? So you start with, okay, what questions, what insights will I be able to get? What would be the biggest value for me right now, right? And then drive back to the data and be, okay, so where do I track it and how do I capture it? But how do we build processes to make sure that the data will be captured autonomously, continuously in a dynamic nature? Because if we work on it once, as we operate, the data will become stale, inaccurate, and all the value is gone.
Yes.
So when we think about it, we have to think about it with the process in mind as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think in the past there were maybe a lot of decisions that were made through the lens of technology. It was very tech led. And then I think I've seen a little bit of a shift of, okay, maybe we shouldn't start with technology, maybe we should start with process. And then we've swung so far on the process side that we've almost overlooked data altogether. And then at the end of it, we're like, oh, wait, where's the data? We can't make these decisions that we thought we were going to be able to do, but we did the technology and we thought we did the process. So how intertwined are those for you, Bhavna, when it comes to process and data?
I think that they're so important. I mean, both of you just raised it, right? If you don't know what the data is being used for, you don't realize that you have to upkeep that data. So you made it right, you made it accurate, you enhanced it for a purpose. That purpose is come and gone, and now you're like, I don't need that data anymore. Well, guess what? There's another AI agent that's going to be tapping into that same piece of data, and now you have not maintained it. So how many times do we go through that painful exercise of getting our data right? It's right in this moment in time. 6 months later, it's still garbage, right? So not having that automated, autonomous upkeep of the data, that autonomous governance of data is significantly, it needs to be the core of the process. It cannot be outside of the process.
It needs to be the core. It needs to be at the forefront at the beginning. And so how can our procurement teams shift from being reactive data consumers to proactive data strategists in an AI-driven world? Let's start with you, Bhavna.
Yeah, so for me, it all comes down to data governance cannot be a compliance role in procurement. It needs to be a data ownership. Procurement needs to own their data, and today we don't, because we are not necessarily generators of all of the data that we use for our jobs, right? So there is this tug and tussle on, well, who owns that data? Is it me? Is it accounts payable? Is it that, that requester? Is it the person in MDM that's actually putting the data in? Who is the owner of that data, and therefore who is responsible for that upkeep of data? Eventually, regardless of who the owner is, if that data is not right and available to me the way I need it, I cannot apply AI and then drive that value, right? So
Right.
that is
Garbage in,
that
garbage
has
out.
to be that has to be a procurement priority, right? It has to be a procurement role.
Yes. How about you, Moore?
First of all, I think you were spot on. I don't have a lot to add. The only thing I would add is I think, again, it's about combining data with processes across the organization. And mirroring data, if we don't own it, we can mirror it as well and then enhance it and expand it, because we get a little bit headbutting politically around that ownership. So, sometimes it's not worth the argument. We can just mirror the data and say, okay, we have slightly different use cases. We want to manipulate and do it in a slightly different way. And data can be easily mirrored today so that multiple different owners can, do different types of magic with it. And if we continue to drive ROI, drive value for all the different business units from the data that we hopefully own, then they will come back to us and they would want to give us access to more and more of their data, because we will drive value for the business.
We all want to drive value for the
Can
business.
I
Go
just
ahead,
jump in on
Bhavna.
that, because I just love what you just said there, more, because we tend to think that procurement operational data is all about compliance or all about financial accuracy, because ultimately that's what's going into our P&Ls and everything else. But data for AI is all around decision making. We are severely underestimating the value of synthetic data and mirroring data. And there is so much more we could do without having the actual data, because all you want is the decision. And then you apply that decision to the actual data. You don't need the actual data to come up with that decision. And we're not even thinking of that, right?
Yeah,
So I
that's
really
a great
love
point.
I
That's
really
a great
love
point. And we're just talking about, talent of the future and what are some of the skill sets that we really need to start thinking about. How do we think about that as it relates to data? Like, how do procurement leaders start to build that data literacy within their teams?
Yeah. To me, it comes down to, we just have to just get past whatever this blockage is and just get into it. We have to become data literate. It's not an option anymore. And I think on the one side, procurement people are foundationally, we're analytic in nature, right? So we're, numbers don't intimidate us. So we have that going for us. We're very analytical. But for some reason, we've not allowed ourselves to really expand into the data world. It's a very small little tweak if we can make, because we are number oriented, we are analytic oriented. We just need to understand a little bit of the tech that goes behind it. And really, we could be leading the way from a supply chain perspective. Procurement could be leading the way.
100%. And think of it this way: a huge percentage of the procurement role used to, and hopefully that used to will just grow, be surrounded in Excels, right? Which at the end of the day is data. Just data at a different scale, data in a different format, and data in a way that maybe is more intuitive for us today to understand. But procurement is data. We operate with data because spreadsheets rule our lives. So it's just about understanding and expanding from the spreadsheet, step by step, baby steps, to large scale data. The difference is not that big. It's mostly in our heads. And the beauty of data, the beauty of AI, is that your imagination is the limit, right? So it allows us to be so creative if we kind of broke that mold a little bit and drive value that even our business couldn't imagine they could get out of procurement.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of rapid fire questions here before closing. So, 1 minute answer. What is one outdated practice procurement teams should leave behind? Bhavna, we'll start with you.
Purchase order approvals.
Auto approvals? Purchase order approvals.
Purchase order approvals.
How about you, Moore?
It's what I call the finger wagging policy police. We should put that behind the no, you shouldn't do it this way. You should do it differently.
We never do that more.
I know. No, this is just like a tiny minority.
So we should be more value drivers. Value, not
Bad
don't
cops,
do this.
but value adding.
Okay, well, what is one piece of advice for CPOs who are starting on their AI journey? Moore, let's start with you.
Trust and value before tech would be my one advice. Make sure to lead with trust first, because if you break it, trust is a one-way street.
Absolutely.
Very hard to gain, very easy to lose. So you start with trust and not the tech itself, and the ROI. Drive even small value. Make sure if there is value, it's step by step, and that you don't break the trust in the middle, because that will take you further back.
Great points.
For me, it would be lead by example, not by mandate. I feel a lot of CPOs are still talking about AI. They're not living it themselves.
Why do you think that is?
Because they themselves are going through those same barriers that their teams are going through, right? So it's very easy to say, we need to do it. But if they don't understand what that is that they're asking their teams to do, just like they do with every other aspect of their role, they know exactly what their teams are doing. With AI, they haven't taken the time to invest in their own AI education, literacy, and application. So they have to lead from the front.
Absolutely. It all starts from the top. Well, thank you so much, Bhavna and Moore, for sitting here with me today and talking about data strategies and ways that we as procurement leaders can really bring that to the forefront as we think about what it means to be ready for an AI-driven world. Thank you so much.
Rosalia.
Thank you, Rosalia.